Hello and welcome to Sportuccino. I'm Richard Parr. Yes, at this strange time of 7 p.m. We are normally live at 11 a.m. on a Monday, but I've got a very special guest for you. You know I love my wrestling, and we've spoken to some amazing stars in the past, such as John Morrison, such as Al Snow, Rockstar Spud. Moose has been on the programme, but today we've got our very first knockout. I'm absolutely delighted to say that joining me now live is the Knockouts, the GFW Knockouts champion, Sienna. Sienna, welcome to the program. How are you doing today?
Greetings. I am doing very well. Thank you.
So, Sienna, we're only 2.5 weeks or so away from Bound for Glory. Just for those of us who don't really know what's been going on recently, what will your involvement be in? What's the beef going on in your world at the moment?
There's always a lot of beef going on, so that's a long list. It's probably easier to list off who I don't have beef with at this point. But just to give everyone a quick catch up, at Bound for Glory, the Knockouts Championship will be on the line, and it is currently me versus Allie versus Gail Kim versus Taryn.
Oh, wow. That is going to be a really exciting match. And of course, it's going to take place in Ottawa, over in Canada. Have you wrestled at that venue before? And what are your feelings when you wrestle over in Canada?
I have not been to Ottawa, but I am familiar with wrestling in Canada. That's really one of the first indie scenes I ever wrestled on, being from the Metro Detroit area over in Michigan. It's like across the street from Canada. So I used to go over there quite frequently. I have been as far as Montreal, but not to Ottawa.
Okay, so it's going to be new territory for you. And of course, Impact Wrestling and GFW have been competing all around the world recently. And I believe recently you were in India. What was that like?
That was an incredible experience. That's also somewhere that I've never been before. I think a lot of us have never been there before. And it was definitely a treat to be over there because those fans, out of all of our, I guess, target markets, those are the fans that get to see us the least. And they were definitely very excited for us to be over there, and they showed it.
Fantastic. And speaking of your fans, we've got a few questions on our Twitter page, and we've got quite a few from a lady called Sue. And one of her questions was, when are you going to come and wrestle in Brazil? Is that ever going to happen? Have you done that before?
I would love to wrestle in Brazil. No, I have yet to be in South America. I've been to Central America and the Caribbean, but not South America. So yes, I would love to come to Brazil.
And one of her other questions also was, who would be your dream match?
In Brazil or just in general?
In general, who would be your dream match if you could wrestle anybody in the world of professional wrestling?
If I could wrestle anyone in the world, just off the top of my head, I'd probably pick Bull Nakano.
Oh, wow. Any particular reason for that?
Just being a fan from when I was younger.
And of course, one of the first people you ever wrestled, and we've seen some footage already here, was against Gail Kim. What was that like in that first ever match you had for Impact? And were you nervous at all?
I was definitely a little nervous. It was my very first time in Impact. That was the Knockouts Knockdown pay-per-view of 2016. I do remember a lot of people having trouble saying that too for the promos. Yeah, that was a little nerve-wracking because it was my first time in the company. We were on first, and they put me against Gail Kim of all people.
How much do you think you learned from her from that experience?
I definitely learned a lot. You learn a lot with every opponent. And Gail definitely has a lot of experience under her belt. And just working with her over the past couple of years, I've learned a lot.
One of the other points that was brought up on Twitter is obviously you've had a long storied career in the independent scene, and now you're obviously wrestling on television for Impact and GFW. Is there much difference between wrestling on the independent scene and then in front of cameras? Is there anything you particularly need to learn or have learned in the last couple of years?
There's definitely a huge difference with working for working a television match versus an indie match. As far as your placement and where you need to be, where you need to look, the cameras are different. I think a lot of indie promotions are sort of starting to apply a lot of those like camera angles and things like that, using the hard cam, things like that, just like you would for a television match, but it's still so different.
Yeah, it's becoming a little bit easier these days, isn't it? With how
Just like you would for a
cameras are becoming
television
so
match, but
easy, isn't it? How they're so available now compared to back in the day. So I think there's definitely a rise in the production level on the independent scene as well. You've spoken about the women's revolution I've seen in other interviews and what you'd like to change in the knockouts division. We've got a question here from Autobus Maximus. He says, what's the one thing you'd like to change the most about the knockouts division if you were in charge?
What would I change? It's hard to say what you would change when you already feel like you're on top. You know what I mean? I do think that we have made a lot of progress since the last interview I've done where I've spoke about that. A couple things that come to mind. I just want to do things that no one's really doing elsewhere on TV. I know almost everything in wrestling has been done somewhere, sometime, but I really want to take advantage of the things that no one else is doing on TV. I would love to. I want to wrestle guys at some point.
Oh wow!
I have a little leeway with that now. I mean, I've done it on the indies, and it's something that's realistic for me to do. Not for all women, but for me, yes. And it's something that I enjoy doing on the indies, and I always had fun doing, and I think it can be done right. So that's something. Different stipulation matches I'm interested in, things like that.
Oh, okay, so if you could wrestle one male, who would it be? Who would be top of your list there?
Man, my dream guy opponent has always been, for the longest time, Chris Jericho.
Oh wow, that would be awesome.
So off the top of my head, I would say him.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah, I think we'd love to see that match. And you mentioned crazy stipulations. What's the craziest type of match you've been in before?
That I've been in, I would have to say, man, I don't know. I have been in some stipulation matches. I don't know. The last knockout standing match ended up getting pretty crazy that Rosemary and I had. But I might have to say that the craziest would be the Fans Bring the Weapons match from AIW.
Oh, wow.
Mia Yim years ago, because I feel like there's much more craziness involved there considering we're using weapons from fans. You know what I mean? So there's a lot more variable going on.
So what type of weapons did they bring? What was the craziest weapon that someone brought?
I don't know if crazy is the right word for this, but somebody did bring a toy AK-47, which I appreciated. Tried to use it. It did not work how I was hoping, so I smashed it. Somebody also brought a light tube that did end up getting used, but it was painted pink. I really don't know. I really don't know the consequences of using something like that, but I guess we'll find out.
And when I asked you that question, the start of your answer there was like, craziest I've been in. It sounds like from your tone of voice that you've got some pretty crazy ideas perhaps up your sleeves. Is that right? Have you got something you'd quite like to do?
I don't know.
I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking about the different type of stipulations I have done, and I guess I didn't really even realize how many, I guess, people would say crazy matches. I mean, I've been in dog collar matches, which can be really crazy. I've been in a couple cage matches. I enjoy doing stuff like that. I wouldn't say I'm a hardcore wrestler, but I certainly enjoy telling those stories.
So what would be the stipulation for your match against Jericho?
I don't know if that one would have a stipulation. We have to have a regular match first.
I think it would be a good match regardless. One of the things that I've obviously got lots of footage here of you as we're talking, and one of the bits of footage we've got is you being struck hard to the body with a kendo stick. Now, for those of us watching at home, it looks so painful. Just how painful is that?
Contrary to what some people may believe about really just wrestling in general, it hurts. It really hurts, and kendo sticks are no exception. Um, I do. Is it which one is it? Is it the one from Allie?
Yeah, it's across your body
Yeah.
and then right into your back.
Yes. Taking anything, especially to the stomach, does not feel good. They leave marks, the kendo sticks, and if it's the time I'm thinking of, because I'm pretty sure I've been hit more than once by Allie with a kendo stick. I think there was one time where I also got hit in the head. Like the end of it caught me right in the back of the head, and that sucked.
Oh, that does not sound at all fun for me. uh, but of course, one of the things that you are known for is you do have an MMA background. You have had a professional fight. Is it sometimes difficult to kind of tone it down a little bit when you're wrestling and not put on some pretty legit moves?
Yes and no. Um, I mean, instinct sometimes wants to take over. At the same time, I know that a lot of things in MMA don't cross over to wrestling and or don't look good in a professional wrestling match. Um, Luckily, I have not been in a situation where I felt that my instincts had to take over. You know what I mean?
Well, that's good, and of course you've been the GFW Knockouts champion now. You unified the titles at your last major pay per view, and Bound for Glory's coming up. How do you feel you cope with the responsibility of effectively being the face of the Knockouts division?
Well, I think I've been doing a great job, don't you?
I do, but is it a lot more of a bigger workload? Is there a lot more going on in your life? Are you getting less sleep? Are you coping with it? Do you feel it's working for you?
I definitely feel that it's working for me. I also agree that I'm getting less sleep. Uh, I would say yes. A lot more work is involved, of course. Just with uh, getting booked in other places, and you have to now my training has to increase and my cardio has to increase, and now I have something to lose. Now I have something that I have to protect. Sometimes it feels easier on your way up because you feel so reckless, like not reckless, but just like you have nothing to lose. You're fighting for something, and now when you feel like you're on top of the mountain and you're sitting on the throne, now you have something to protect. It just feels differently when you have more at stake. I will say that.
For sure. And of course, there's always a lot of news coming out of GFW and Impact Wrestling. And one of the big stories is about the Global Wrestling Network. How excited are you about this launch?
I'm very excited. I downloaded it right away. I'm excited. I've been watching some of the past content on there. It's good stuff.
Fantastic. Any particular match that you think some of our viewers should look out for?
Hmm. I mean, besides any of mine,
Well,
I
even
would,
out of yours, including yours, what match perhaps are you the most proud of that people should perhaps go and look out for?
man, that's hard to say, but I would definitely recommend checking out the last knockout standing match versus Rosemary.
Ah, fantastic. Well, everyone, if you haven't got the Global Wrestling Network already, go and download it and go and watch that match between Sienna and Rosemary. Sienna, thank you so much for being on Sportuccino today. Just before you go, maybe let us know where we can find you on social media if we're not following you already, please.
Of course, you can find me on Twitter at Sienna. It's that easy. It's just at Sienna. That is also my Instagram handle. Um, and you can also check out my Patreon, which is under my independent name, Allison K.
Wonderful. You've done well getting that just at Sienna, both Twitter and Instagram. That must be like gold
Yeah.
dust. Oh, congratulations on that. Well, it's been so good to talk to you, Sienna. Thank you for being on Sportuccino today.
Thank you for having me. Pickies up.
Really good to speak to Sienna on Sportuccino today. It was a wonderful chat with her. And of course, we've had other great chats with professional wrestlers on Sportuccino. We've spoken to John Morrison, Al Snow, Rockstar Spud. We've spoken to Moose. Stefan Bonner. Stefan Bonner will be involved at Bound for Glory as well. They're all available at Sportuccino.com. Go and check it out. We've got lots more for you there as well. Our fact and fiction shows and some of our best in the world with Richard Parr interviews where I speak to Olympic and world champions. All of that at Sportuccino.com. All right, but for now, I've been Richard Parr, and you've been watching my interview with the Global Force Wrestling Knockout Champion, Sienna. Goodbye for now.